Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Both the people who are here in person at SATSIN and joining us virtually. Today, we welcome SchoolLab, specifically the CEO of the San Francisco SchoolLab, Matthew, I guess, as well as Quentin Fricon, the country manager and innovation consultant with SchoolLab Vietnam. Let me tell you a little bit about SchoolLab. SchoolLab is a global innovation studio founded in Paris, 2005, with offices in San Francisco and Ho Chi Minh City. SchoolLab leverages collaborative design with programs from plastic abatement to equity and inclusion, digital platform development to design fiction. SchoolLab has a breadth of experience that serve specifically to empower responsible innovation. This talk today will call on experiences from Deplastifying the Planet, a program co-created by SchoolLab San Francisco and UC Berkeley's Sutaji Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology. This ongoing program brings together students of design, engineering, and business with corporate actors and startups to identify new business opportunities that work to solve environmental challenges. So without further ado, please welcome our SchoolLab guests and speakers here.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Sadin, for enabling us to organize this talk today. And I see an impactful journey ahead and a lot of collaboration. And thank you also, everybody, for joining. And yeah, a quick modus operandi for the people online. So please turn on your camera so that we can see you as we can see the people offline. Mute your mic when you're not talking. And we will have a Q&A session at the end of the talk. So please ask your question in the chat box. And we also have Nhan from SchoolLab team Vietnam, who will be answering some of the questions. So let's get started. So thank you, Nick, again for the introduction. So I'm Quentin, the country manager, and I've been an innovation consultant for the last 5 years at SchoolLab. And I'll be sharing the stage with Mathieu, who will be taking the mic in a few minutes. So today for the program, really briefly. So we started with a welcome drink. We had the opening words. And then we will briefly introduce about SchoolLab, and then we will, from 5 p.m., talk about what we've been doing in the US, but also in Europe, and what we've been doing in Vietnam and soon in Thailand around open innovation program for positive social and environmental impact, in particular with some use cases around Deplastify the Planet, and then we will have an interactive Q&A and then a networking time at the end of the talk. So we started a bit late on time, so we're gonna pass the icebreaker, but if you can just in the chat share your name, where you work from, and just an adjective to tell us a bit more about your mood of the day and what you think about positive impact. Okay, so really quickly so that we have time for Mathieu to share about what we've been doing. And Nick already greatly introduced about SchoolLab. So SchoolLab, we are an innovation studio that was founded back in 2005 in Paris, but actually the idea of SchoolLab originated in the Silicon Valley at Stanford. And so basically, in the last 16 years, we've been building a unique ecosystem to enable people and organizations transformation. So really from startup entrepreneurs, university and students to executive in multinational to accelerate their innovation project. And so this has enabled us to reach the result that you see today and accelerating a lot of different projects, but also training those people so that they can continue their positive transformation within their organization. So concretely, we've built in those last 16 years 3 areas of expertise. We've developed, actually, that was our funding program, open innovation program, so really enabling and creating program that enables different stakeholders, startups, students, and corporate to work together and accelerate projects. Project acceleration, so really quickly in innovation consulting, so creating ad hoc teams of expertise to accelerate projects for private and public organization. And throughout those different programs, we've also created coaching and training programs to enable people to gain knowledge and experiences to accelerate innovation. Sorry. So as Nick mentioned, we are a global innovation studio created in Paris, where we cover all of Europe. We have different programs on the African continent. We are present also in India, and I'm in charge of the development in APAC through our hub in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. And of course, we've had a strong partnership in the US with UC Berkeley, where we founded our hub in San Francisco. And I will let Mathieu share a bit more about our mission in the Valley and globally. Thank you, Mathieu.
Thank you very much, Quentin. Hi, everyone. So great to be here. I'm literally fresh out of the plane coming from San Francisco this morning. So just to speak this slide, I think our motto just stands in this triangle, which is design a brighter future. Our idea is to leverage our unique skills in design to create something impactful. And the future also stands for the fact working with different generations, which is definitely the future. As I was saying, I was literally flying this morning, and I was surprised and kind of gladly surprised to see this packaging, or this small note on the packaging on Vietnam Airlines saying plastic, no plastic in product, basically. And then when I checked the small, brochure that you have in the airplane, you can see somewhere it says, like, since 2019, Vietnam Airlines has reduced its waste by 60 million plastic bags a year. So I was just, very, it makes me smile, and I love the fact that plastic is definitely an important challenge here, and that large companies like Vietnam Airlines are actually tackling this challenge since at least 2019. So what I want to touch a bit upon today is this program that we created called Deplastify the Planet, and just try to bring a few conclusions, a few learnings we get from this experience and this journey that we started about 4 years ago. So the idea of Deplastify the Planet is to create an open innovation class where we have students coming from the prestigious UC Berkeley University that work alongside with industry corporate partners, and where SchoolLab played a role of program facilitator. So our role at SchoolLab is really to augment the experience of students and corporations and do the whole scaffolding of the project so that things can go smoothly when you bring together people that usually don't speak to each other. In terms of numbers, we have 1 batch per semester. We have about 100 students per year and 16 to 20 projects per year with different company, going from the most well-known company in Silicon Valley, like Facebook, Google, Microsoft, you name it, as well as very small early stage startups. And I'll bring a few examples to illustrate this. A bit about the key success factors that we've been bringing and really our contribution at SchoolLab and things that we've been witnessing for 4 years. One thing is to have real project management, and it's easy to say we're going to bring together students and corporations. We're going to create open innovation program. It's another thing to make it work, and that's where our experience has been really interesting. The commitment of the partner is really something key, and we've realized that partners that are actually committing to a certain cost in terms of human resources, in terms of money, are actually much more engaged in the whole process and brings much greater results to the overall thing. Diversity of profiles, as it has been introduced, we work with students all across campus, and that brings a lot of value, and you'll see why in a short moment. Strong network engagement, that's also something that we love to provide at SchoolLab. And knowledge management database, making sure that the knowledge we can create with one partner can also be reused in different contexts. So now just what I like to do is to kind of take a step back and again share a bit about why are we doing this and what we could transfer as conclusions from Silicon Valley. So first, and I think I'm definitely in a place that value a lot of impact and sustainability. It's not an option anymore, and I think people at Sazin have really understand this a long time ago. And I think more and more companies are also understanding that, making things properly, trying to think about sustainability, trying to think about the distributivity and diversity and equity in your business is definitely something key. It's key because there is no other way, there is no other option to sustain as a species, but also because we see people going in the street, we see students also being pretty vocal about those topics. It's becoming a very, very strong business case for any company to hire talents as well as find clients. I love also this small kind of cartoon that illustrates that we've been extremely active as a whole planet when it comes to COVID and how we fight this. But then we saw that there is, many other waves that are coming behind, and climate change is definitely probably one of the biggest challenges we're going to face as a planet and as humanity. And we should put the same effort that we put to fight COVID. Another interesting kind of statistics that I like to pull when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion is a pretty old numbers that are from 2015, but shows you how wealth is captured by a very small amount of people across the world. And as you can see from this chart, about 3% of the global wealth is owned by 68% of the people, whereas 0.7% are owning 51% of the wealth. This is phenomenal numbers, and it's just go increase as we're speaking. And it just shows that we're gonna face major problem, because throughout history we've seen that major inequalities definitely lead to big crisis, and it's definitely still time to avoid this one. So now, why open innovation can be a good solution for such challenges? Why is open innovation one key to make this world maybe a bit more sustainable and equitable? So the first thing is, my belief is that it's definitely a multi-generational challenge, and the only way to make things work and drive change is to bring different generation at the table. The other thing is that what brought us here won't take us out of it. So we definitely need to think in different schemes. We definitely need to challenge the way we've been thinking about business, about our consumption, about our way to address a market. And this can happen thanks to open innovation. Another interesting thing that I've been witnessing is a lot of companies are actually afraid of making important decisions and driving change, because they're also afraid of backlash, greenwashing, being treated of any sorts of name on social media. So bringing at your innovation table new generation, people that could either become your best fans or your worst detractors, is also preventing any company from backlashes and pushing them in the right direction. The last thing is that when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to diversity inclusion, we're all in the same boat. And it's not about competition inside an industry or cross industry. It's about industry as a whole, our whole economy moving in the right direction. Now let me show you a few use cases to explain you how open innovation has been pretty successful when it comes to creating major change in terms of sustainability, as well as essentially deplastifying the planet. So I'll start with an example of a project we did with Renault Nissan, which is one of the largest car manufacturers in the world. Just as a matter of fact, Renault Nissan makes 1 in 9 vehicles worldwide, so definitely a major impact. It's about 9 million cars a year. And just for you to know, what they're doing is they're assembling parts that are coming from many different places in the world. And every part come in a packaging like the ones you could see here. And all those packaging generate a lot of plastic, about 25,000 tons a year, that are just packaging for parts that are coming in the factory. Now, how innovation plays a role? Well, what we did with the group of students is that we tried to look at the ecosystem. We tried to think in a different way. So we know they're producing 9 million cars each year. Each car has about 30,000 parts, and each part comes in a packaging, which leads to 25K tons of plastic waste every year. What's interesting is that in Renault's mind, the only way to solve this challenge was actually to look at downstream. How can we eventually recycle or change a bit the plastic that we have, and how we can reduce a bit our impact? The way we looked at it as an open innovation group is look at all of those steps. What if instead of only recycling the waste or find alternative to plastic, we rethink the whole supply chain so that we don't have to ship 30,000 times 9 million parts a year? What if we reduce the number of parts? Can we actually simplify the design of a car to reduce the overall number of parts? And what if we reduce the number of vehicle products produced by a car manufacturer? Just imagine the reaction of the managers at Renault when we told them, you should stop producing 9 million cars a year and you should produce much less. Obviously, it's a big leap. It's a big change to make, but it can only happen thanks to the intervention of people outside of the company who are actually pushing for new ways of consuming, new solution, that also means new business model for car manufacturers. So at the end of the day, what happened is that we create a short-term solution for the company, more on the right side of this slide. And we also push them to rethink their whole business model and say, tomorrow you're not selling cars, you're maybe selling service, and you're maybe owning the car and your user would only use it and pay per usage, which will also drive significant new value proposition. Another interesting example is we worked with a company, an early stage startup, making plastic out of seaweeds. Who would think this is possible? Well, it's actually what they've been designing, what they've been prototyping. The problem when you're in an early stage startup is it's hard to find your market. It's hard to find your go-to-market strategy. That's how open innovation was, again, a pretty interesting solutions for them. The question they were asking themselves is, well, this plastic is phenomenal because it's biodegradable. Problem is, in most places in the world, you don't have any composting facilities or ability for waste management companies to compost some of their waste. So that's a shame because they have a fantastic product that's going to end up in the same place as the rest of the landfill, not using the best asset, which is again having a compostable and biodegradable material. Well, the way to tackle this challenge, to go around it from the students, was to say, let's find closed environments where we can actually recapture all of this plastic and make sure it's going to be treated properly. The illustration you see here is a California stadium where UC Berkeley hosts all their football games. The prototype we did was actually to use this plastic in the stadium for big games so that we know we're going to be able to recapture all the plastic that has been distributed along the games because it's a closed environment. And then we're going to make sure we have the ability to compost and to reuse this plastic or to dispose it properly. So again, it's just showing you that the student mind can bring very different solutions and very different go-to-market strategy, which would, at the end of the day, help a startup deliver the best of its value proposition. Now, the last example I wanted to bring is actually a more kind of close example. It was actually for the South Asian market where we work with a big company doing shampoo and soap. As you probably recognize, those sachets are really convenient, but they're also terrible in terms of waste generated. They're mainly plastic. They're never really recaptured, recycled, or reused. Now, the question that the students asked was, what's the value proposition of a big company selling soap? Is it the job to be done? Is it to sell shampoo? Is it actually to sell packaging? Or is it to offer shower to their clients? By this, bringing a very different thinking around the problem, the students actually came up with a solution of what if we actually sell the shower experience instead of selling a packaging full of soap? And they came up with the idea of creating shower on wheels, where not only clients in rural area would have access to shampoo, but the whole experience, including intimacy, including fresh water, and including also drainage and all things that are needed in some areas. So those are three examples where I'm pretty sure solutions brought ideas and solutions about reducing plastic waste that you wouldn't have thought about if you were to start a project where they did. It's a good example of how those students can, oh, and by the way, this is just the impact created. It's actually eliminating something like almost 300 million sachets per year. So all those examples just show you that the value proposition of an open innovation program, such as the one provided by SchoolLab and UC Berkeley, is bringing the leaders of today with the leaders of tomorrow. So people in large organizations who are making decisions that have a big impact on the world, alongside students who would be the leaders of tomorrow, and which would be the ones in charge and tomorrow and able to make the important decision. The other interesting point is we definitely get a full range of perspectives of disciplines by having, again, students from many different backgrounds. The third thing is definitely have the voice of the next generation. Coming back to my earlier point about you don't want it to backlash, so how you make sure this voice is heard. And the last point is definitely shared knowledge, because what is applicable to one project can definitely be transposed to another one. And again, we're all in the same boat, so it's definitely a common effort, to join effort. Now, I'd like to end this short presentation by maybe bringing some of what I believe is really specific from Silicon Valley. you know, in a discussion we had just earlier before this talk, we were saying that sustainability has a different meaning all across the globe, and very different to speak about sustainability in Europe, in the US, or in Asia. So a few kind of insights from how they do sustainability in Silicon Valley. Well, I'm sure all of you guys know this guy, Elon Musk and his Tesla. What's interesting with Tesla is that the way Elon Musk pitched Tesla at the first place, he say, I'm going to build the best car in the world. And actually, it's going to happen as an electric car. He always starts with the idea of creating the best product, and then sustainability come as an add-on. Same thing with those shoes that maybe you've heard about. It's called Allbirds. It's like compostable, biodegradable shoes, headquartered in San Francisco as well. Same thing. The first thing is to create really comfortable shoes. It happens to be biodegradable shoes. So just, you know, switching the value proposition from creating the best product, then it happened to be sustainable, makes a lot of those innovation pretty successful and bring the Silicon Valley mindset into place in a lot of sustainable driven companies. Another interesting thing with Silicon Valley is that it's all about KPIs. It's all about metrics. It's all about ambition. This chart is actually brought from a book called Speed and Scale from John Doerr, who is one of the most successful investor in the US. And this is his way of solving the carbon challenge that we have in front of us. He created 10 different kind of chapter, put metrics on each of them and a roadmap, as simple as it is. And that's the way a lot of entrepreneurs are thinking in the US is create metrics, find real problems, and make sure you can measure the progress. And actually, he not only wrote a book, but also invest personally 1.1 billion for the new climate school back in Stanford. So again, ambition, metrics are one thing that also drives sustainability in Silicon Valley, and which I guess is things that we should definitely replicate in other places in the world. And now the last part, it's about the business case and about timing. So usually back in Silicon Valley, things are successful whenever there's a business case. Well, it didn't take them too long to figure out why is it so important to create sustainability solutions when we think about business. Look at the price of climate action versus climate inaction, where there's many graphs around this, but it's pretty easy to understand that it's much more costly not doing anything than actually invest in new technologies that are going to reduce the risk and that are going to mitigate climate change. The other question, so that's just another way to illustrate this, where you can see all the damages that non-intervention could generate. Now, last question and last point I'd like to bring is why now? Why is Silicon Valley so obsessed about climate change and sustainability right now? I think it's all about timing. And if you look at those innovations, you probably remember or not that in 1993, Apple already came up with the idea of an iPhone. It was called the Newton at the time. Timing was really poor, just a few units sold. Then a few decades ago, they came up with the iPhone, pretty much the same concept, but very different timing, and the success was full. So it's definitely about timing. And if you know the Gartner hype cycle, we believe in Silicon Valley that it's the right timing to explore sustainability. And that's why we see a lot of investment and initiative around this. So that was a bit about kind of the few insights I wanted to bring about the program that we've created, as well as a few lessons from Silicon Valley. I'll pass the mic on to Quentin to kind of wrap up on this presentation, and we'll be open for question later on.
Thank you, Mathieu. Inspiring talk. Okay, so just a quick wrap up to conclude. So it's time to, if you're asking yourself how to get on board and how to start creating positive impact. So we'll be launching the program Mathieu was talking about, Deplastifying the Planet, in Southeast Asia with a kickoff in Q4. But there will also be an opportunity to join other programs if your company is also situated in other location with the different dates. And then also, we didn't talk about it, but we're launching a new program with UC Berkeley called the Silicon Valley Impact Camp. So it's a 6-week UC Berkeley certified entrepreneurship program to work on accelerating your idea or existing project. So it's for students, but also for professionals who wants to learn about entrepreneurship for positive impact. And the next kickoff would be in December. And so if you want to learn more, you just have to scan the QR code or click on the link in the chat that has been shared. So thank you again for Sazin School of Sustainability and Entrepreneurship, Center of Sustainability and Entrepreneurship. And now I think we'll take a few questions from the audience, online and offline. Any questions in the chat?
What's, the design thinking is something that everyone talks about in the whole ecosystem, in and out of the ecosystem. What is your unique approach? Why are you successful? And how is it really different from, every guy and their sister are talking about design thinking these days?
Thank you very much for the question. So design thinking has been around for quite a lot of time, which I think is a great thing because it really places the user at the center. I think where we can kind of be slightly different is the fact that we've been really applying design to subjects that matters to us. Our version of design thinking is definitely different from other version of design thinking. And I'll go even beyond this, where we created our own design framework called design fiction, which is kind of, I hope, the next step of design thinking, which really try to focus on the future. Try to think about a successful innovation should not be made for today, it should be made for tomorrow. And again, coming back to what I was saying earlier, how do we use the next generation as a fantastic catalyst of innovation and bring new ideas? So I think, definitely design thinking is a fantastic place to start. And then we create our own framework to make it more applicable to sustainability, to diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as future thinking, because we think that's the only way to really make it significant and useful. Thanks for the question.
Could you share about your plans for Thailand and what you plan to do? What are you thinking of doing? Where in Thailand, and perhaps with who and when? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Luc, for the question. So in Thailand, we are currently discussing with different academic partners to launch a similar program that Mathieu has been presenting of what we've been doing with UC Berkeley. So as I mentioned, the dates are going to be confirmed, but we'll be launching in Q4. So we're currently looking, of course, for corporate open innovation challenge around plastic pollution. But not only, Mathieu mentioned, we've created different programs focusing on different challenges that the society, the economy, and organization are facing today. What we believe in Thailand, Southeast Asia, and Vietnam, where we're based, is that the informal economy has an important role within the economy. It's something that we see we see a lot in the waste management, and you can actually see it in the picture of students interviewing informal workers in Vietnam. But it's not only in the waste management; it's in all industries, in the supply chain, in the logistics, etc. So what we believe is that for Vietnam, Thailand, and Southeast Asia, is that organizations have a role to play in terms of sustainability for the communities. And so that's what we'll be also looking for. So the dates will be confirmed, but we'll be more than happy to have a follow-up meeting after this event. And feel free to add any other questions.
Just to follow on from that, if various organizations, corporations, etc., they want to get involved in this, what what do they need to do? What is the commitment on their side? And importantly, what did they get out of it?
Yeah, for the first thing, of course, get a meeting with us. But then second thing, so they have to define, and that's something that we do with them, define a sustainability or social challenge. And so this is where we, SchoolLab, come into place with our consultant, really to help them narrow down their problems, their challenges, and what could be the business opportunity behind this, because the idea is not just to do sustainability for positive environmental impact, it needs also to make business sense. So that's defining the challenge. Of course, they need to provide funding to go through the program and to be able to have a team of students coached by experts, both from the academic partner and from SchoolLab. And then what we request, and I think Mathieu can also share some experiences from what we've been doing with UC Berkeley, is to have a minimum of one project lead. So someone who will be participating to the work session with the students, enabling also the student to get access to the right internal expertise, to the right knowledge, because there's surveys that have been done. So some of the things don't need to be done, but also as Mathieu mentioned, one of the core aspects of our methodology is to be user-centric, stakeholder-centric. And that's also the role of the corporate organization, is to enable the student to reach out to the right people internally and externally also when we're talking about different partners. Mathieu, if you want to add anything on that.
I think the second part of the question was what they get out of the program, so which is pretty important. Essentially, what they get is a solution to the challenge that we've been framing. And again, as Quentin explained, we're framing challenge in a way that where we make sure we can find solutions. Solution also usually, it's not just one thing, it's more about a plan to make a transition happen. Transition is really a key word here, because the idea is not to say, first of all, plastic is not hell. Plastic can be a great material in many cases. Also, there is industrial complexity that needs to be understood. And so it's really about how do we help this company transition to a more desirable kind of option and place. They also get definitely access to talent, which can be really something sensitive in a tense market where we have talent war. So getting close to students during the whole program can also be a phenomenal advantage for companies to get access to talents. Last, it also goes beyond just the result of the program. It's of the project is also how we can eventually help people within the organization who contribute to the project understand the challenge, make it theirs, and really create this ownership across the company, and also definitely kind of image for the company and how they speak about themselves, how they tackle challenges like this is an important part of the outcome as well.
I have a question too. So I was just wondering, like, what it is that your methodology looks like in practice. Like, what makes it really like look and feel different? Like, what words would you use to describe it that are different than like the standard kind of, you know, go in and do some consultancy with companies and then come out the other side?
Absolutely. So I would start with one word, which is system. And I think the very important component is to help students understand that we're thinking in a system. And it's not just about switching plastic to another material that at the end of the day could be worse than plastic. It's really understanding the whole scheme, the whole system, and how changing one thing on one side may create a positive change. So that's one thing, is the systemic approach that we're bringing to this. And it happened sometime that at the end of the project, we tell the company, well, you should stick with the current solution. You should stick with plastic because maybe that's the best solution in this specific case. And that's okay. And that's part of the learning process. The other thing that makes it super unique is also the fact that we're going through a certain number of solutions that we've been experiencing throughout the 4 years of history. That again, coming back to my point about shared knowledge, we've seen patterns of, you know, interesting ways to solve the challenges. And it's funny to see how sometimes being more sustainable is not about technology, it's not about material, it's not about innovation. Could be about how do I create the proper incentive within my company for people in the procurement department, for instance, to buy the right quantity, to challenge their providers to be more sustainable, to rethink the logistics and so on. So we have all sorts of patterns of solutions that we apply to each and every project, which I believe are really creative and really unique, and that are the results of 4 years of intense kind of R&D throughout the program.
We have a question from Facebook Live from Ajanusi. How to enter your program?
How to enter the problem? Oh, the program. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for the question. So entering the program in Berkeley is definitely possible. The good thing is, thanks to COVID, we also learn how to work with people all across the world. So the best thing to do is definitely to reach out to us on theschoolab.com. You can definitely reach out to us. It's possible to work with companies all across the world. The next session is actually starting in August. And so it's just, takes a couple meetings to figure out what exactly a challenge would be for a partner, for a company, and how we're going to make this work in terms of logistics. I'm guessing maybe the question is not coming from a corporate partner. It could also come from potential students. So I'll answer it both sides. If you're a student from not from a university like Berkeley, your best way to enter the program is to attend the SVIC Silicon Valley Impact Camp, which is open to any students across the world. And same thing, you can reach out to us. The program is detailed on our website. And the next session is going to happen in December. It's a 6 weeks intense program around impact, where we leverage all the learnings we have for, again, students that are not specifically part of a partner university. Thanks for the question.
May I ask a follow-on, actually, from before? So I'm wondering, when corporate partners come to you with problems, how much time do you spend kind of building out those problems? Because you said systems, and it seems like there's quite a lot of flexibility and of figuring out maybe that the original problem is not the actual one. So what does that look like in working with the company to figure out what their true challenge is?
Yeah, and the answer is actually half of the whole project is spent on figuring out what's the problem. And that's actually key, because if you haven't identified the right problem, you're going to create a solution that is absolutely not relevant. So it sounds like a lot of time, but companies that are coming to us also are here because they want to learn, they want to challenge the status quo, the way they've been looking at sustainability, the way they've been looking at a product. And the 3 examples that I brought earlier, again, landing in places where the company really didn't expect to go. And so it takes quite some time to figure out a problem. The moment you have identified the right problem, the moment you know exactly what you're fighting, it's so quick to get a solution. But this kind of time takes a lot of effort, a lot of commitment from our side, from the company as well, to figure out, okay, what are where we can push the envelope, what are the different sensors that we can move, and what would be truly effective. Because unfortunately, we see a lot of instances where sustainable innovation actually lead to worse problems, and to places where we switch from one material to the other, for instance, and then the new material is actually causing more harm in terms of life cycle analysis and so on. So it's really about figuring out the right problem, which is a key component of the whole solution. Thanks for the question.
How much does it cost for one to study and join the program? Was the question? I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I've seen
hard
the
to answer.
question. So I'll answer for what it is in Berkeley right now. And again, making sure I'm covering all of the options. I'm going to answer as a corporate partner as well as a student. As a corporate partner, we charge $35,000 for one project for the whole semester, which lead to, again, all the results we've mentioned earlier. If you're a student and want to attend the Silicon Valley Impact Camp, it costs $5,000 and you get the Berkeley certificate, and it's a 6-week-long program, and all the information are online.
Okay, so with that, I think that if there are no more questions, and if you can interrupt me with questions if anyone wants to, but with that, I think that we'll wrap up this session. Thank you so much to Matthew and Kenton.
Oh, wow.
And we have some gifts here from Satsin Sustainability and Entrepreneurship Center. Yeah, okay. Thank you for all those online that have attended and those in person. These hybrid events are probably going to be more numerous in the future. So do keep your eyes peeled for more fireside chats.